separate thing than what we've been talking about so far. But there's a deliberate push to regulate the internet. So
before we go into that, can I ask you one more question about AI then?
Of course.
Is there any good you see in it?
Obviously there is some truth to the fact that it does make certain things more convenient. It does technically free up certain people's jobs so they can have more time to do other stuff. Yeah. The problem is literally the worst people in the world are in charge of it. And they want to use it to make everyone basically a complete idiot that's super easily manipulated and controllable. And that is what needs to be resisted. So, if someone wants to make like an open source AI that, I don't know, does some stuff, I'm not going to be like, no, don't do that. But, I think it's very important now more than ever to divest as much as possible from big tech, Google and Oracle and, all these other companies, Amazon, what have you, because they have too much power. The people in charge have obvious problematic agendas. And they basically, at least in the US, they own the government. They basically control the government. The tech billionaires fund almost all the politicians. Guys, again, there's this famous guy from the US who was very influential in his time named Albert Pike, right? Who was very influential with the powers that be and, affiliated with Freemasonry, and said something to the effect of, every time the people want a hero, we will supply him, right? Elon Musk to me seems to be one of those figures. Why do people, for some reason, see him as this Tony Stark Iron Man kind of guy? Well, the Iron Man movies were funded largely, or they had a significant, I forget the exact amount, but a very large contract with the US military. While Elon Musk has companies that are also affiliated at the time with the US military. And Robert Downey Jr. decides to model Tony Stark and Iron Man and whatever after Elon Musk. And Elon Musk makes an appearance in the movie. And then people years ago start affiliating Elon Musk with this brilliant scientist who's going to save us all. Right. And how far have things progressed since then? You know what I mean? And remember, Elon Musk too is making a brain chip that's killed like not half, but a significant amount of them get drowned out. Right. So again, what I try and tell people is, frankly, it's very hard to trust these people because so much of it is controlled. And, a lot of my work historically is focused on blackmail, how intelligence agencies have blackmailed, whether it's politicians or business leaders or any other sort of influential figure, in order to control their behavior and thus control the behavior of regular people. Right. So, this is stuff that people need to keep in mind. And ultimately, I think there's a lot of cultural issues with celebrity in the West, where people have been trained to wait for a political savior who's going to come and save us of all of our problems, and no one actually has to do anything. And we can just sit back and wait for the right person to run for office. And then we all vote for them. And then this one person is magically going to save us from all of our problems. People have sort of been primed to feel that way. You can argue maybe like superhero movies and religion maybe and all other sorts of stuff has shaped us to be like that culturally, but that is a problem. What we should do is take responsibility for what we need to survive and what our communities need to survive. Jeffrey Epstein banks. And personally, people that have, been pillaging Latin America monetarily for a long time. And supposedly he was going to dollarize. Now he's not. But essentially, most of the people he's put in charge of the economy are people that were already in government under Mauricio Macri, who is the administration before this most recent outgoing administration, who under them, there was a major economic crisis in Argentina. I think it was like 2018 or something. So these aren't necessarily anti-establishment people.
Yeah, wasn't that kind of a coalition though, in that the only way you could get into power was by forming a relation with the Macri administration.
Well, you could argue that in Malay's case, right? Because he wanted the center-right politician who was running Patricia Bullrich to back him, and that her support of Malay was brokered by Macri himself. You can argue that, but ultimately Malay is signing off on it, right? And Malay is the one that just went to the U.S. and like had meetings with Bill Clinton, and has had chummy. And more often than not, these think tanks are funded by corporations and billionaires and all of these guys. And they also own the politicians. So it's really them creating the policy. And they use the state as an enforcer to force it on the public, right? So that's, I guess, the global public-private partnership is what my colleague Ian Davis calls they, right? And I think it's pretty fair. He puts the BIS at the top, by the way, of the pyramid. This policy, one of the earliest iterations of it, at least in the United States, was during the Obama administration. They called it a driver's license for the internet. The idea of, in order to access the internet, when you set up, internet connection at your house, the internet service provider links all of your internet traffic to your ID. And in doing so, the government and the signals intelligence arm or intelligence agency of the government then has access to not just everything you're posting and writing online, but also everything you read. Crypto, and specifically with Bitcoin, to criminalize mixers and criminalize any sort of service that affords you increased financial privacy. And that's only going to escalate.
They have criminalized mixers because... well, I know of at least 3 cases where people are either tied up for multi-year lawsuits for the creation of mixers. They're money launderers.
No, right. So it's already started. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, where they want to take this, if anyone uses a mixer, they can go after you. That's what they want to set up. They don't want anyone to have financial privacy or online privacy anymore. And that's what part of this agenda about a regulated internet is. And it directly ties in with stuff like a central bank digital currency, at least what people are concerned about a CBDC for, which is the surveillance capability and the programmability aspect. It's all tied up with this effort to and how people interact with and use money. Well, being able to grift as much as you want and take as much as you want from the people under you without them knowing or complaining, because that's what they've been doing for decades, right? Wall Street. So they want to keep doing that. They don't want to change their behavior. So they want to find a way to be able to steal from the underclass as much as possible without the underclass complaining or revolting, and control how they spend their money. And control their financial and other behavior so that they can maintain their place on the top. So what we're having is the engineering of a neo-feudal society where you have the small upper class and then a massive underclass that the upper class can manipulate and control and do whatever they want with as they see fit. And so that's what I think the ambition of a lot of these various initiatives we're seeing for unprecedented control and surveillance are aimed at. And the goal is to use technology, whether it's AI or any of these other emerging technologies, to be able to do that, because obviously there's so much more of us than there are of them. And so in order to scale